Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron with the Black Ice mods, and of course we're playing as the U.S. and we're talking with the chat here that Germany after the war finds they find it's Austria, a huge tungsten reserve that they didn't know about, maybe the largest in Europe. And I presume it's still being dug out, and that would have changed a lot of stuff. Yeah, it would have changed. And Plastic Gangster talks about a few high temperature jet engines. And yes, my understanding, and it's imperfect obviously, but is that the U.S.A engines that are being used by, I think they're the same basic engine being used in the 262, ME-262 and the Arado Blitz bomber, I forget the number of it, are all the same engines, all those jet engines. And then the Volks fighter with just the one engine, I think it's the same engine that they are using for all of those stuff. They were the best, functionally the best jet engines of the war, I think. The British had the Meteor, I believe it was called, jet fighter, but they would not deploy it outside of Britain because they were afraid it was going to get shot down over enemy territory and that the Germans might get a hold of it. Well, they were actually more or less, and technology isn't always done everywhere equally, but more or less they were behind technologically than the Germans. And yeah, they might get some out of a crashed jet. They might probably not going to get enough information to better dogfight it or sometimes, because when the Americans, they capture some and get working, though not entirely, there's one fuel thing or something that it's gotten into over one of the Japanese fighters, whether it was Zero or something else, that the engine would shut off. Well, it wouldn't, because the captured whatever fighter, when the Americans sort of got it working again, they didn't realize that there was some little device or something that was not working right on it that would keep that from happening. But so the Americans, would test out. It's not so much that they wanted to get the technology. What they really wanted was, and they eventually work it out, but late or post-war or whatever, the duraluminum, the actually better, stronger aluminum that the Japanese are making for their Zero fighters. It's not so much that they wanted the technology of the Japanese fighter to improve their own fighter. Again, the metal would be nice, but not so much the technology. But what they really wanted to do was get up and fly some of the Zeros, and to learn actually as a pilot how their strengths and weaknesses. But if it's an actual crashed aircraft, unless it's in fairly good shape that they could somehow patch the thing together and get it flying again, that probably isn't the issue. So that they were really more worried about the base technology of jets or whatever getting into German hands, but more or less the 262 is the Messerschmitt is a better fighter than the British. The British do use their jet fighters, and mainly to that I remember reading about is to knock V1 bombs out of the air, because they were faster than the V1 bombs, and so they could catch up to them and either shoot them down, or they learned you didn't actually touch your wingtip to them, but they would fly over and just move their wingtip, I think, just under them, but the airflow or whatever over your wingtip, so you're not actually you sort of come under them and then lift up, but just the airflow, so the wings wouldn't touch, but the airflow would destabilize and drop the V1 bomb, probably into a farmer's field instead of a middle of a city kind of thing. So they were useful in the war, but Britain was overly paranoid about them. And deep sale. Okay, managed to find some change behind the sofa cushion. Cool. Means foreigner spy. Okay, human person. Well, Spiraling actually had lived in Japan for 10 years, so I'm going with him. But, we're looking at the details of the word, presumably the negative connotations, but not universal. Hello, person human, how you doing? You're sure you're not a bot? Allies actually had their own jet. Yes, actually they did. Just considered it too unreliable to bother investing in the war. Well, the Americans were producing it. I don't know a lot about the American aircraft. I do know that when the Americans were transporting their jets around, they put a fake propeller on it. So like when it's on a truck or a train to be moved around, people would see the fake propeller on the front of the aircraft, just so that they would see that as being it. They were that paranoid over it. Was there ever a fight between, not that I know of, because I don't think the 262s were ever over Britain. They did fly the Blitz bombers as either bombers or photo reconnaissance over Britain, I know. I don't know that the 262 had the range, and they never put the Meteor over Europe to fight the yeah, poor farmer. Yeah, I know, but it's better to wreck a farmer's field, presumably nobody getting hurt, than take out a block or half a block or something in London. Just imagine standing in your field in the war. Yeah, well, you'd hear. Well, the V2s they couldn't intercept because they were going up too high. They built. They're building Junkers UMOs. The Heinkel, yeah, the Heinkel engines. BMW. Okay, so more engines than I was thinking. Coated with microscope coat and chromium from Turkey, rebuilding after. Yes, that's what I was getting to. Is the engines that the Germans were building, I think, were the most efficient, because actually, to my knowledge, the first prototype military jet fighter, I think it's in 1938, is put up by Italy, who actually had the engine in the main fuselage, but behind the pilot. So the intakes air would come in from the front of the nose, go around the pilot, and go behind the pilot where the engine was. And it wasn't as fast as the propeller-driven Italian aircraft. Italians they did a lot of seaplane racing and had actually reasonably fast aircraft at the time. And so it was a functional jet fighter. It was fairly big. And it was functional, but it wasn't any faster at their engines faster than propeller-driven fighters at that time. So they didn't really pursue any production. It was a developmental project. So the first that I know of, the first operational jet fighter, again just a prototype, but actually getting up there and flying, was the Italians. So it's pre-World War II. I think it's 38. It's after 36, I know. There's an event in Third Reich Events covering it. I just forget the year that it pops up. So the Italians were there in the first, and Hans Ohlend was the main worker for jets for Heinkel and producing the engine designs. And so they were really good, but as... oh, hello, Michael Fox. Good to have you here. I think that more psychological weapon and didn't do that much damage. Yes, it's been ages. Good to have you here. Well, they hoped that it would do damage, and the V1 and V2, I think they were designed to be a strategical weapon, not a psychological weapon, but a combination of... Well, let's face it. I think Hitler's mismanagement decides to make it a terror weapon. I know I'm jumping all around. Well, let me first finish. So the big problem was, because Germany did not have enough tungsten, they couldn't make. I'll get back to the V1 and V2 thing. I think it is interesting. They couldn't make an engine that would deal with the heat long enough, because jets are particularly hot engines. And you're also talking about relatively thin pieces of metal, so compared to thicker pieces of metal, which might be able to absorb and deal with the heat a bit better, would overheat, and maintenance / literally sort of recycling the engine at some point would need it much faster with the German situation. But it's not just that. You have and it's not a war winner, but it's definitely a thing, the Gerlich principle of guns, in which the gun would, like a gun barrel, and they had to do it with relatively small stuff, but it would work. It'd start out with like a 28 millimeter round, and by the time it left the barrel, it was 20 millimeters. Now they just had bands around the ammunition that would force down. It wasn't like a full solid piece that shrunk down, but it would be forced down as it goes, it collapsed down, so it increased the velocity, and it was only really effective at sort of short and medium ranges, but it would get sort of a hyper velocity, if you will, round. But it required tungsten to be used as the ammunition, so you were expending tungsten, and Germany did not have enough tungsten to mix into the cutting elements and other needing elements just on machine tools to build other things. So after building some of these guns and making some of the ammunition, they realized we can't afford it. Not dollars or Reichsmarks afford it, but just we need to use this tungsten to make machine tools, not to make expendables, let alone continuing use items like jet engines or guns or whatever. So tungsten was a critical element for the war effort for Germany, and they just did not have enough, even for their basic machine tool expansion needs. And so that would have changed things. Not changed things in the sense, in my opinion, who wins or loses the war, but would change the nature of the war. And had Germany timely, which includes prior to the war, and especially if not having to pay to import, because that's a limitation, because they don't have enough money to import as much things like tungsten as they would like to. But if they had a huge deposit in Austria that they could have got spun up and going prior to the war, you would have seen more machine tools of various types in Germany, which would have mean more production early on, before the war starts, early war, mid-war, late war. And so you could see significantly different outcomes and elements. But I still would say even if you take nuclear weapons off the table, unless you can knock the Soviet Union out or something like that, and I've talked about this before, but unless you can do actually something like that, you're not going to change the final outcome. You're just going to change how the end comes and when the end comes. So yeah, it's important. The V weapons, I think they were developed, mind you, not necessarily because you're developing them a year or more, because some of them, Peenemünde is before the war going on. So you're developing them not because you think you're going to lose the air war and be forced to use other means, because the army is developing rockets as well as the Luftwaffe. There's both going on at Peenemünde. They're looking at them as they don't know, because they're developing. They don't know what it's going to end up being, but they're looking at them as additional or alternatives to manned flight of one sort or another. And I think they're looking at them, and when they're actually designing the V1 and the V2, not just the pre-stages and the technological development of the concepts, I think they're looking at them as strategic weapons, not as tactical weapons, but not strategic as in terror bombing like they end up doing of London, but more the idea of, we know where the factory is, not that it's London, but it's like right here. Well, let's send some V weapons to this factory. And if you're on target, you can you can get the latitude and longitude down well enough, and you have a guidance system well enough, you can put 4 V weapons right onto a factory. Boom, 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 and the factory may not be completely destroyed with just 4 V weapons, depending on the factory and whatnot, but it could put out of effective production for 6 months or something until they get it spun back up. Or your spies, your photo reconnaissance are seeing a bunch of landing craft being set up in Portsmouth. Well, let's send a bunch of V weapons to the port and blow up, the landing craft at the port. That's what I think they were designed to do. But Hitler, from his perspective, and there's a lot of things, he decides to use them as a terror weapon. And I don't. I'm trying to. I'm trying to understand Hitler and his thinkings. And this isn't. I know you guys have been saying a lot, and I'm. Oh, you're going, Mr. Duck? Okay, see ya. Priority left, but thanks for being here. I try to note these things, but I don't necessarily, because chat is on the screen above the one I'm looking straight at, which I have the map here, so I don't always catch all that in time. Sorry. I do care about you guys, but I'm trying to think here. Hitler has his racist ideology, okay, but he thinks Britons are Anglo-Saxons, and they are. And Anglo-Saxons are a type of German, maybe not a true type of German, but sort of in his Aryan worldview. And he sees the German people, as being some sort of super people. Why is he thinking a terror weapon is going to defeat him? Because it's sort of like defeating himself. Well, he thinks his supermen, his Germans, are going to overcome all this stuff. And so, it's one thing to think that, those lesser people, the Slavs or something, he might think, they can be terrorized into losing the war. But why does he think that? I don't know. It's sort of like his insistence that the Me-262 have a ground attack capability. I get the idea, and it does make sense to have an aircraft that can do everything. But when you can get it into production as a fighter aircraft, why don't you just get that thing in and then get that production, and then demand that, if you're going to interfere in demand, not maybe what the Luftwaffe wants, but if you're demanding what they want. And yeah, I know it's like we're playing this game, I'm in charge and not the air minister's in charge. Why not, get it functional as a fighter and then add the ground attack capability, design that in and get that in later on in version 2 or version 3. Yeah, that's sort of okay. Side note, 262s that flew in a straight line away from Allied fighters were actually more likely to survive than those who tried to maneuver. Yeah, I could see that. Deutschsujin means German person, for example. Oh, Deutschsujin. Okay, yeah. Okay, spiraling. Yeah, interesting. Baka Jin means stupid person. Yes. Okay, so Jin is person. Baka and Deutsu and Guy are the descriptions to the person. Okay. Remember, the Meteor actually got into squadron service just before the first was built, but it was not allowed to cross the front lines. Enter Germany, not allowed. Banned from going east of the Rhine River. Interesting there. Plastic Gangster is very good at history. The more I see him, and I don't, he may be refreshing his memory from something like Wikipedia or something, but you have to truly, and I know a lot of young people just, it's on Wikipedia, I can look it up. Yeah, but sometimes you have to know to look, because sometimes when I get ready and prepare, like I'm planning to talk on sometimes when I've been doing the shows over on the Marines channel, and I know I'm going to be playing Order of Battle and talking about LLMA, I'll pull up beforehand and look and maybe even keep it up there, the Wikipedia article on LLMA, just to have some of the dates and facts better to reference, because I don't keep those in my head well enough. But LLMA's a famous thing, and if you're already sort of using what battle scenario you're playing, you can just Google that. But you really got to know history to know what to look up to find the the details. So yeah, and the more I see Plastic Gangster, the more I respect his knowledge on history, because it is varied. You think the 260 would have won, all things being equal, but they weren't. Yeah, Allied pilots were on the whole better trained than the Luftwaffe. Now, of course, there is the Flying Circus, which was the Adolf Galland's group, and they were all veteran pilots moved over. So that was that was a sort of a unique squadron of 262 fighters. So playing field, yeah, airframe. Nowhere near as much as you think, but I know what you mean. Yeah. Michael, what's the American take on Prime Minister resigning and all the shenanigans? America, they haven't noticed yet. I mean, I know it's happening, but America hasn't noticed yet. And since Boris Johnson hasn't resigned, he's announced his resignation effective in October or something at the next conservative conference or whatever. That's sort of like saying, oh, hey, there's going to be an election in, few months, and I'm not going to be running in the next election, So, yeah, so he hasn't left office yet. He hasn't resigned yet. Because like when Nixon resigned from office, he signed the paper and got on what had been Marine 2, because he's no longer the president, and flies out of the warehouse, or not warehouse, White House, and flies away. He's actually gone. He's actually left, because he resigns instead of faces, trial for impeachment. He is impeached in the he is impeached in the House, but he isn't put on trial in the Senate. So he resigns before all of that happens, but knowing that was going to happen. But he actually leaves office, where Boris Johnson has not left office. Boris Johnson has announced his resignation effective, I think it's October, correct me if I'm wrong, and that they're going to have, hello Baba Booey, that Boris Johnson is no longer going to be Prime Minister of Britain. They haven't noticed yet. And so nothing, and so even the diplomats, that pay attention to this stuff, Biden probably doesn't even know who Boris Johnson is at the moment, but that's another question. He'd get told on a little card, because if you've seen the little card that says, you will walk in and say hi to Mr. Boris Johnson, then he would know, but outside of that, he wouldn't know. But the diplomats might just be trying to figure out who's going to be the next prime minister, but the still current prime minister is Boris Johnson. And the main thing that the Americans are dealing with the British, as well as with other leaders, are dealing with Ukraine. And at least for now, none of that policy has changed. So the Americans haven't noticed, the public or the diplomats much. That was Commando. No, I thought it. Well, my understanding is that there was. Because I've seen a model years ago done up that had a mix of 262s, and I think it was, I forget if it was 109s or 190 Focke-Wulfs, and it was sort of made up, it was sort of like considered, I don't know if this was post-war or whatever, but it sort of like a nickname, the Flying Circus 2 or something like that, for Adolf Galland, but I don't know. So yeah, well, and I don't know about party leader and whatnot. Technically, most of us, he's good as gone. Yeah, but he's going, not just that he's gone. So, but America, with Ukraine and I don't think you understand the sort of fear porn that America's been putting out. That the American people wouldn't know what's going on. Barry doesn't live here anymore. Okay. Yes, because Biden. Well, yeah, that's Biden. But I know Boris had bad hair, but other than that, I don't know much about his life or his political views. What he is doing is resign as leader of the Conservative Party so that he cannot remain PM after the new leader of the Conservative Party. But the process will take a while, and yeah. Mazda 626. Okay. United Kingdom has President. United Kingdom has annexed Iran and is okay. So the event going, and this is what happened. Not actually annexed, but is sort of game mechanic to make it functional. But the British and the Soviets agreed to partition and temporarily occupy Iran to move Lend-Lease products and whatnot through Iran into the Soviet Union. Now, I thought it was more like in 42 or something, but I'm not sure. 42 or 43. I don't remember dates well. Yeah, it would be good to see them, but I'm trying to read what's going on to try to keep you up. But watch wherever you want or can. I don't know what's best. Britain and the Soviet Union partitioning Iran and getting rid of Reza Shah as leader and occupying the country. I believe it was around then. Carrier group doctrine, that would be year 43. Let's move this to, we're almost into 42, so these things would be good, but let's look around. Okay, well, we have more going than we can currently use, so let's cut back on some a little bit. We're getting there, Arno. Okay, capital surface. Radar. Okay, that would be probably either here. And it's grayed out. Okay, good. And Italy lost a battleship. Okay. Yes, you can have crude oil. We have plenty of oil. Let's increase supply production to at least a moderately positive amount. I know we got that big division coming. And warfare. I haven't even built any paras yet. I don't plan on, well, I mean, America did have rocket artillery, but let's do armored cars. There's something we thought we had got rid of 25 years ago, one of the old titled aristocracy that got into Eton and rugby and is fully paid up member of the old school brigade. Yes, hello, Stuart. De Quincy, yeah. Well, I could go into a whole diatribe and we can see. I think the world is very unstable, people. I think our leaders are blind to reality, living in the past, thinking about a new eco future. And because of various things, I don't know if you guys understand, and I don't even really understand the details, but what the fuck is, oh, the Japanese have landed in Sri Lanka. Oh, how interesting. And I don't think this is scripted. I think they actually, the AI did an invasion here. But I don't think you know what's going on. I don't really know what's going on, but there's riots and upheaval, and they were storming the presidential palace, I think, within the last 24 hours. And they were, I don't know if they, no, I think they, I think they burst into the palace and I think I saw some footage of them swimming in the presidential pool. There's a full-on revolution in Sri Lanka right now. I don't know. Guess who I am? Stuart DeQuincy. I don't know. Unless you're Charles the First returned or something, but beyond that, I don't know. I don't think that's the screen name he would use. But instead, only getting half the conference. Oh, okay, you're Plastic Gangsta. Okay, I'm now guessing that because now you mentioned that. Yes, okay. Now, one of those British who has a last name as a first name. Okay, WEF sock puppets. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff, but I don't think they realize what's going on. I could make 2 or 3 hour rant video about the conditions of the world, and not that I know what's going to happen, but I know what could happen. Knowing what can happen doesn't mean it will happen. Okay, cast ground crew training. I don't know how much. I'm just going to turn people off. Okay, we'll let that continue. Ranting about modern world stuff when they want to see gameplay videos because they don't either care or believe that it's important, or hey, they've had enough of it and they just want to Stuart, your data from Star Trek. Okay. Mind you, I cannot see the Twitch. You can't see the Twitch. I mean, it's not popping up on the screen for YouTube, even delayed. Well, maybe you have to watch them both things to see both stuff. Starstreak, Lankan president. I'm not even going to try it. Promised in his, I think you mean Sri Lankan. Okay, campaign to transition the country's farmers to organic agriculture. Over a period of 10 years, last April, government made good promises imposing nationwide ban on importation and use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and ordering the country's 2 million farmers to go organic. Now that's not going to turn out well. You can guess the rest. Okay, I would love to be Data. Why wouldn't you want to be a member of the crew? Just went back and had a look. Okay, because it should be. Maybe it does. Maybe it's only on the recorded version that because I'm also recording this locally here, and the recorded version does have the Twitch chat that I put up on later onto YouTube. So maybe the live stream doesn't. I don't know. That's why I try to read fairly quickly and somewhat mumbled. I know, so you at least get the context of what I'm. Okay. And so the world is. You know, when I've spent, I don't know, the last 30 years screaming into the void of how the world is fucked up and going down the wrong path, and nobody the fuck pays attention to me. Yeah, I know now on YouTube and there's all of 100 or 200 people that actually sort of watch the channel routinely, and a few of them care, and none of it's good. I don't know if it's worth keeping doing other than doing that. Have you played Turkey? No. Okay. Turkey. Playing Turkey. World War II. Hey, I'm neutral. The war has started. Hey, I'm neutral. Hey, the wars are going on. I'm neutral. Hey, America or Soviet Union's about to enter Berlin. I'll join the American side. Yay. And I mean, what's the fun of it? What's the fun of it? Now you're going, oh, well, I want to try to restore the Ottoman Empire. That's, I get the people who like to play EU 20th century. Restore Byzantium. Yeah, I know that's a thing in Paradox games, but if you're going to play, the movie War Games, at the end, what's the best The best way to play global thermonuclear war? Not to play. If you can stay out of the war, stay out of the war. Stay out of the war out of Switzerland, Spain. And why don't you play Spain? Okay, we have a civil war, win the civil war, and then what do? Oh, we stay neutral. I mean, yeah. I mean, what I really like. Okay, why I play war games. Why I play war games? Well, one, I'm fascinated by history, but I'm also fascinated by history. Not what was the date of the Battle of Culloden? Well, April 16th, 1746. I know that one. But most dates I couldn't tell you. Yeah, I know June 6, 1944 is D-Day, and I only know that the latest conquest of Rome was June 5th, 1944 by the Americans, just because it's the day before D-Day. I don't know, so the facts of the history are important, but I don't keep all those in my head. That's not why or what does the general's uniform of the 1700s look like, or 1800s, or whatever. I mean, I'm sort of interested in some of that, but what I like are not what ifs, like, well, what if Hitler was a good guy, or what if, the Tsar stayed in power. No, I mean sort of like, well, how could the Republicans have won the Civil War? Or how Germany could win World War II? Those are the kinds of things that keep me wanting to play war games, not just read history books, not read, good historical fiction. Sort of history written as if it were a novel, and try to stay as damn close to history as practical. But you don't know what some general said to so-and-so during a meeting. You may have a few quotes out of the meeting so you know what it was about. And, maybe even somebody, quotes back in a letter. Well, I told them this, in the middle of, but he probably said 500 other words or something at a planning meeting or something. So, you sort of create, good historical fiction. I like reading that stuff. But playing a war game is, mentioning Culloden, is how the Jacobites could have won that battle. Not that I want to reenact, well, they moved up here and then this, reenact the whole thing and just have it happen just the way it does. And then, that exercise, if you sort of want to war game it to have it happen just the way it did, is to try to, say, understand the details of an actual historical event. That's good to a point. But what I want to do is, well, how could you, have won the battle? What could you have done? Are there things that you could do to win that battle? As the Jacobites, they lost, if you didn't know. That's what interests me about wargaming. Yeah, tactical battles are cool. So, especially on a grand strategy type game, are the what ifs in the war. Not what if America was, the Silver Legion, because it wouldn't have been the German American Bund, because they're, focused on German Americans, and yeah, they're Nazis and all, but they're a minority community that are only going to let in a very, very limited of non-core German Americans, But the Silver Legion being a fascist group, yeah, I'm sure they were somewhat racist. I don't think they had any black members or whatever. But they weren't a KKK-based group, which was much more Americanism-based, democratic Americanism, as in the Democratic Party. And still democratic as in their... they wanted elections. If the and you could arguably say the KKK had a member or maybe not a member, but a general supporter in the White House in the Wilson administration. President Wilson, a Democrat during World War I. So if they were to, the KKK were to get political power, it would not be, we're establishing dictatorship. They would have, the Constitution is great, we just want to keep black people from voting, and Jews and other undesirables from voting and whatnot. and keep them down or whatever, they would not have changed the fundamentals of the Constitution in any way, shape, or form that I'm aware of, and I don't know their ideology in detail. But the Silver Legion was a fascist organization in America, much larger membership. We don't hear much about it nowadays, and in fact, much of my time studying World War II, I never heard of the Silver Legion, but it was a much larger organization than the German-American Bund, and it definitely looked towards Mussolini's fascism as its inspiration. But as far as I know, it wasn't focused on the Italian-American community at all. I think it was, but it wasn't exclusionary like the German-American Bund would have been to the Italian-Americans, as far as I understand. And again, there's not a lot written on the Silver Legion, and I don't know much about it, but I wish I knew more just because I want to know about it. And so it's not like, well, what if they came into power and they were allied with the Nazis? No, what I want to do is well, what could America have done realistically with the realities of the time, done better in World War II, Obviously, and they could have. They had the forces. They existed. They could have deployed more forces, and there's enough food production, not necessarily enough, ammunition production, but enough food production to station enough American soldiers, have an army here in the Philippines, big enough to defend the Philippines, that you don't need food shipped in from America. So meaning if the Japanese, whether in Pearl Harbor or wherever, sinks every last American, capital ship, at least in the Pacific, they can't. This is one thing that Japan doesn't understand is even, Japan sees, well, hey, sink the American fleet. Yeah, but you can't stop America from building. Japan cannot, and basically no one could at the time, stop America from building another fleet, is because they could build an American fleet on the Pacific coast. Kaiser Shipbuilding is definitely ramping up and builds a lot. And they can build an American fleet on the Atlantic. If you hear, they're actually building like some submarines and whatnot in here and taking them out, smaller ships taking them out through the St. Lawrence Seaway, not major combatants. They do have some sort of carrier up here, but it's sort of like for training in the Great Lakes. It doesn't leave the Great Lakes. It's too big. It's not like a full-size carrier, but I think it's maybe it's some other ship, but I think it's a carrier they had there. It's for training purposes. But there's no way, they can't keep having raids and sinking or destroying ship producing facilities. So America is always going to be able to build more ships, and so you're not going to win a war with America simply by sinking its fleet, unless somehow you're technologically so much superior. If you have radar and they don't, and you have guided, like the German guided missiles and bombs or something, and then America does it, and America is just producing targets, shall we say, and not effective combatants. So I am interested in how America, and I know this isn't accurate, but what could they produce? So I've been limited by the game on my ICs, and if you look back at the earlier episodes of the series, I'm building, not exclusively, but heavily building ICs, trying to ramp up my industry. And then I switched early on over to Navy capital ships so that I have a large Navy, if not at the beginning of the Pacific War, fairly early in the Pacific War, to affect the outcome in the Pacific, as well as be able to function in the Atlantic. So that's what interests me. Not, well, how could, post Ataturk, because I know he's dead by this time, but Turkey rebuild the Ottoman Empire, which of course they're very anti-Ottoman, and they're now pro-Turkic. Not that they wouldn't maybe want to gain some territory back, but the Ottomans ideologically are, yes, they're Turkic peoples, but they're ideologically not culturally. Under Ataturk, you get the idea of wanting to create Turkish nationalism as opposed to Ottoman imperialism, I think is the kindest way to put it. I mean, we can also talk about Kurdish and Armenian genocides, but that's another whole issue. as well as violent expulsion. Because under the Ottoman Empire, there are majority Greek communities along the Turkish coast, including up, I think, on the Black Sea, that once you get, Turkey as a nationalism, they get expelled. I mean, they get run out of the country because it's now Turkish and no longer Ottoman, which, the Christians were a second-class status, if you will. I don't know if citizen is the right term, but second-class status, but they were at minimum tolerated, if not, because they were something of a merchant class, I believe, and maybe a cottage industrial class within it. So if not if actually somewhat welcome, but in a second class status sort of situation, is my understanding. Again, I could be wrong. Again, not an Ottoman expert. So I don't know that there's like a realistic wanting to rebuild the Ottoman Empire as a Turkish nationalism. They might want to strategically gain a few, they'd love to have something like Cyprus or whatever, because obviously they have half of it now. This day, they'd love to have taken Cyprus and expel all the Greeks and, gain some more territory. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but they were interested in being Turkish, nationalistically Turkish at the time. So I don't play war games for that. I play war games, like I say, for how Germany could have done better, how Italy could have done better, how America can do better, or Britain or Japan or whatever. And I know we get unrealistic results, and I know there's some chat going on. I'll look up in a minute at it. Unrealistic results with some of these games, because sometimes you're gaming the game a little bit more than you should, and I do that too. And sometimes it's just a game is somewhat unrealistic in its application. It's trying to be realistic, but it's, and so that's why I play these games and why I have a great interest. Now, hey, if 5,000 people wanted to watch me try to restore the Ottoman Empire, because it's not an objectionable thing for me to do, I would gladly do it because I look at it as a job. But I don't see 5,000 people watching each episode and doing that right now for any of my stuff. But so if you get me a big enough audience, it doesn't have to be 5,000. I'll play just about any country with Hearts of Iron or any Paradox game and enjoy it. It's maybe not what I want to do, but since I don't know how to get that big audience, and when I've tried to play things like EU4 or whatever, and my audience, my viewership just plunges off the cliff. I have a whole series that I never released of us multiplayer. I know a few people really like. Yoshishima Hatsu, I'm probably butchering that name, really like some of the stuff. Just viewership plunges down off the cliff, and so I don't even release the stuff after making the live streams. So that sort of limits me on some of this stuff. So I've got to okay, let's see, decent recall that. Let me scroll back up here a little bit. Okay, June 41. Okay. What if same here? Yeah, okay, spiraling. Yeah, realistically, they call the Jacobites 75. 45. Not 75. I think you're the Second Coming. Well, the Culloden happens in April 16, 1746. The Jacobite Rising of 1745 starts on August 19th, 1745 at Glenfinnan. Okay, here's Fort William. Glenfinnan would be right up around here. And that's the start of it, is in 1745. The last major battle is outside of Inverness in April of 1746. A few days later, they have actually a larger force than that gets defeated here, rallies here, Jacobites, but by that time the prince has lost heart and goes into his thing. So let me catch back up to Operation Barbarossa. No, I don't have that date. Okay, I'm a Plastic Ink says I'm a historian and good historical fiction gets bad press, but I'm all for it. Good historical. Now, and I mean, well written, but also, like, I really like, now he's passed recently, about a year or so ago now, but Dewey Lambden started his main series of books at the American Revolution, and with the hero, goes all the way through to the Napoleonic Wars. And it's a fictional character, he's fictitious captain and a fictitious ship, but he puts whether as a crew member on a ship or the captain of a ship, puts it into very real situations, including like the Battle of Yorktown and the attempt to evacuate the British Army across the stormy night evacuation that failed. And so he's telling very good history by putting a few viewpoint characters that are bouncing around very real history. And you can learn history that way and just realize that the main character isn't a real person. That kind of historical fiction, I think, is great because it's both well written and does history well. Where you get Douglas Riemann, who also, what's his other, Alexander Kent, who I stopped reading his Napoleonic fiction because it was fantasy islands that were created with British governors in revolt against it during the Napoleonic War, and it was just complete fantasy. So even though it was sort of rousing, good, action adventure set in that, it was really bad. Now he may do better as Douglas Riemann in World War II. Yes, I know some of these stuff too well. Better history there because I think he knows it better. And so you get some of the some of it's uneven, some of it's better. And so I really like good historical fiction that's both well written and good history with just sort of a good sort of novel read through it. And that just to me is fun. Actual moment to care all, but yeah, subjective opinions. So that's good. 16th June. Okay, don't know. Okay, very good. You're not sure the dates, facts, not bad. So yeah, no, that's why I get 1745 is from the Jacobite uprising, and I have delved very deeply into it in the past, including not fully 6 months, but I lived in Scotland and I did lots of research wandering around Scotland and meeting people and doing stuff and going places. Can't stand the Neo-Ottoman stuff because they despise their history and what they did to the Christians. Absolutely, ZZ. I'm conflicted very much. I don't hate Turkish people at all. I know we've had a few Turkish viewers here, and I know some of the Turkish people want to be more Western. Those are the ones I generally like, though those are often some of the same sort of nationalistic types. But the sort of fundamentalist types that are sort of coming out of Anatolia, that are fundamentalist Islamic types that support the current Turkish president, I think they're wayward and going in the wrong direction. Okay. Oh, it does. Yeah, it's on the screen itself. Is where it pops up, not in the chat window. So if you watch the screen, you should see the Twitch stuff on YouTube. Okay. Where's the Jack? Jacobite 1745. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, 45. But it lasts into 1746. One of the best series I watched years back. Shelby Foote, Civil War. Very good, Michael Fox. Yes, I have the books. I've read part of a couple of two of the books. I have all three of his books that he wrote, and I definitely like the Shelby Foote as part of I forget the guy who actually does the series. Shelby Foote is the main one that they talk to, but the guy who's also did the series on the Prohibition era. I'm blanking on his name now, but so Shelby Foote was just interviewed a lot for that series. Ken Burns, that's it. Yes, there you go, Stuart. Yes. Hey Tony, first gen, good to have you here. So yeah, I've watched several of Ken Burns' documentary series, and they're very good. Yeah, just not good with dates. Yes, yeah, I have to look up the stuff too. But knowing generally this stuff's going on is sort of the key. And for me, being a historian, yeah, dates matter. Not saying you don't, but what it really is cause and effect. is what I look at. What is causing something to happen? What are the effects of that something happens? Causes and effects. That's what's important. So relative dates, relative timing, I'm reasonably good with. I couldn't tell you right offhand the date of Falkirk, or I could sort of make the Battle of Falkirk, or the Battle of Preston Pans, all part of the 45, and I'd have to look those up to give you the exact dates. But I know the sort of beginning and ending dates of the campaign. So I'm not good on rattling off facts and figures from my head, but I could describe to you how the battles take place, even though I haven't really read a description of either of those battles in 20 years. So it's how and why and what happens kind of thing, more than dates and facts and people did this and people, person did that kind of thing. Okay, small warship surface radar, which is probably grayed out. Let's look here. I think would metallurgy be good? Yeah, let's do metallurgy. I know we're getting on, and Arna's probably gotten bored because the war hasn't started yet. But I have fun talking with you guys. Okay, we're getting more and more less likely of selling off our resources. Warship air surface radar. Okay, and yes, both of these, surface and air search. And interception tactics, that would be under air. Okay, 42. Let's move. Let's do air superiority. And we can also do ground attack. That would be... No new tank models yet from when we last looked. I have not had any of those come up. Metal destroyer crew training. They're mostly doing crew training and command and control type stuff. Destroyer crew training 43. Yeah, let's stop that. We can move over to spotting. Get better spotting. Okay, reducing down. So we're going through the upgrades sort of slowly, but there, we're getting down to the reinforcements. Now, what do you say? What do you say? We're going to mobilize. Bonus to all it gives a bonus to all reinforcements for 45 days to fully mobilize reserves need. 131 manpower. We have the manpower, so let's do it. Let's get our divisions mobilized now. Does the game take into account the... I don't think so. Do you have to research some text to alleviate the problem? I don't think so, Michael. No, I've not played as America, and they may be an event. There very well may be an event. Oh, now we need more consumer goods. Okay. Oh, because we're mobilizing. That's why we need more consumer goods. There may be an event that nerfs the effectiveness for a while of submarines. So that may be a thing. I've not played America beyond. I've not played America before. If you think the series was good, could you read Shelby Foote's Narrative History Civil War, 3 volumes? This is one of the like I say, I have the books. I bought them used years ago, and I've read parts of 2 of the books. Not the majority of 2 of the books, but parts of them. Informative. Yeah, I think it's very good. I just haven't taken the time to, quite honestly, I'm not reading as much as I used to. I listen to more audiobooks than I read nowadays. Oh, come on, pause. Okay. Export of tungsten. Nope. We're getting surpluses on some of these destroyer escort roll advances. I'm not going to do specialization because I don't think that's going to I don't think we need that as bad as Britain would, or possibly Germany. Not that we don't need it, but where's destroyer escort? Oh, up here. Yeah. I think we're just going to try to do overwhelming it with it. Okay. Well, now we have light armored car or light armored thing, so we can check out light armor. You know, that may be enough of a. Well, let's go over looking at some of these 42 advanced armored designs or optics. Let's go with advanced armored designs. Now it would be worthy to look at light armored brigades. Let's see. The M3A3 Stuart. Don't remember what it was before, but that's what it's saying is our current light armor. And I presume it would also be similar for the battalion. That goes. Very good. Actually, this next week, Slytherin's channel, which company else bought, and it's something of a separate division, but it's quite honestly more of a marketing difference. Matrix Games, which still exists, like I say. We're doing a all next week. We're actually Saturday or Monday through to Sunday of next week. We are, I don't know if there's been some personnel changes, and I don't know how well everything's running and how well they're putting up the schedules on Slytherin's Twitch channel. But we're doing a special to Gary Grigsby featuring one of the games. I'm going to be doing the final one on Sunday because it's the one I have and I know is War in the East 2. But they will be streaming, one of the days will be War in the Pacific Admirals Edition and all of the other, but partially because I know another company started dealing with Steel Panthers, even though they still have a Steel Panthers product on Matrix. They just don't, in my opinion, give it enough love, and there are it's on hold, meaning there's no work being done on Steel Tigers, which is their follow on to Steel Panthers. But Gary Grigsby's work that Matrix has a thing with, so we'll be featuring, so you might want to look for the streams, and you can watch them as VODs next week if you're interested in watching that. God, I never stop. I read one novel and the majority of Rob Bennett's Wars of Alexander Successors Volume 1 this week. Yeah, I used to read more. We weren't playing that last week. Weren't we playing that last week? Last week I was playing Panzer Corps 2. Last week I was doing that. John Guild Thunder on the Danube. 1909 is pretty good trilogy too. On Slytherin, yes. So that's going to be on Slytherin. So I'm just doing the one War in the East, but XTRG is the other guy. He's going to be handling the rest because the other streamers don't either. I may have War in the East 1, but I don't have the other games, and I'm not really familiar with them. So the only one that I'm reasonably good with was War in the East 2, so that's why I ended up getting that one. But I was the only one other than XTRG who had enough familiarity with the games and wanted to do it. I'm really proud that I get to stream on Slytherin's channel. I know it's, as Twitch channels go, and sometimes it's also put over onto YouTube, is small compared to something like Paradox's channel in viewership, but I'm proud of my association with Slytherin because they are a real war games company. Even when I'm playing something like Starship Troopers, which is a very good game. I was doing that earlier this week. Fun game. I mean, obviously it's not a historical. Okay, we're going to get over to some of these. Infantry firepower focus, we'll do that. Basically, I guess getting M1 Garands out to our infantry, but yeah. Strategy Gaming Dojo is the guy too. He knows a lot and does a lot, plays through some tutorials. Very good. I read about Napoleonic against the Habsburgs last war. Yeah, I would recommend, if you want Napoleonic era fiction, I would recommend a very, very good series by Dewey Lambden. It's sort of the Alan Leary novels, but Dewey Lambden, I think that's his only real works. I have all of his books. Last couple were just in digital. Also, I like Dudley Pope's Ramage series. He was a World War II vet, lived on his boat for years, and also wrote a good book on guns. But he did a really good, really enjoyable historical fiction. Maybe not as quite historical as Dewey Lambden, but very good still. And of course, you have Horatio Hornblower stuff is also a good sort of starting the modern genre of historical fiction. Getting there. The hours are going by. Getting closer to World War II. Capital ship. Okay, that will be grayed out, so I'm not going to bother looking for that. We're going to do more of these 42 technologies. Bernard Cornwell Sharp. That's another good one. Yeah. Bernard Cornwell is a good historian. I think they did a really good. I haven't read the books. I've read all the Sharp books. I haven't read his Anglo-Saxon Chronicles book that the Last Kingdom series that was done on television. I saw that and I thought that was really good history based around that Bernard Cornwell series on the U.S. Civil War in the same vein. And I've not read that one either, and I know he's done that as well. The only thing I've really read of his, I started one of his Merlin series, and for some reason, I don't know, I just started it and I dropped reading it. I don't remember why specifically. It wasn't terribly, I don't know, just the starting of it, and it's sort of weird. Not that it would have been bad, but I just sort of, I don't remember exactly why I lost interest in it. But I've read all of the Sharp, and of course I watched the Sharp TV series way back when. The only what is the I'm trying to the guy who stars in it. I always blank on names. The Winter King, yeah, Winter King, yes. What's Starbuck Chronicles? Yes, that's right. As soon as I don't know what's who starred in the Sharp series and a bunch of other things. The actor, but it's one of the things he doesn't die in. He mostly dies in stuff. Gun ability. Okay, yes. Getting our it ain't Arthur Shield Bearer. Sean Bean. No, yeah. Yeah, Sean. Is it Bean? Yeah. Sean. What? Yeah. One of the ones he doesn't die in. He dies in a lot of his stuff. Hey, Impact X Easy. How you doing? I was listening to your history lessons in the background while playing my own. Yeah, you can just listen to me. I mean, there's stuff to see on the screen, but you don't need to. Just curious on how you became so knowledgeable on World War II history. Okay, how I became so knowledgeable on World War II history. Okay, that'll have to wait for another episode. Live streams keep going to go here, but we're chopping this in episodes, so just don't want them to get too long. So we're going to end this episode here. I want to thank you all for watching. If you want to hear how I got so good on history, you're going to have to come back next episode. We'll be covering that at the beginning and then continuing into the game. So see you everyone next time for more Hearts